welcome. You're watching WION World as One. Thank you so much for staying with us. This is World DNA with me, Hem Kaur Sura, and here's what we've lined up for you on the show today. A US appeals court rules that many of Donald Trump's tariffs are illegal, but allows them to remain in place for now, giving him time to take the fight to the Supreme Court. Trump calls the ruling incorrect. Donald Trump moves to cut nearly $5 billion of congressionally approved foreign aid, raising the likelihood of a federal shutdown as Democrats oppose the policy. Kremlin says Russian President Vladimir Putin will discuss preparation for the December visit to India during the meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the sidelines of the SCO summit in China. India and Japan unveiled joint declaration on security cooperation, which elevates defense and security ties to the next level, taking into account temporary geopolitical realities and security in the region. France and Germany vow to step up pressure on Russia over its war against Ukraine, threatening further sanctions if Vladimir Putin fails to turn up for talks with Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky. The United States says it will deny visas to members of Palestinian Authority to extend next month's UN General Assembly. Palestinian Authority urges Washington to reverse the decision. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian says Tehran does not seek war but will defend its nation forcefully if attacked by Israel and the United States, accuses US and Israel of seeking to divide and destroy Iran. Donald Trump withdraws former Vice President Kamala Harris's Secret Service protection in what critics call fresh act of revenge against his political rivals. Argentine police raids offices of National Disability Agency and pharmaceutical company at the heart of a corruption scandal embroiling President Javier Milei's influential sister. Now, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is heading to China for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit after wrapping up his Japan visit. The SCO is part of the multinational platforms where India shares the stage with the regional and global powers. Compared to G7's focus on advanced economies and the BRICS' broader economic and political goals, SCO offers a different platform, with its focus on regional cooperation, security and anti-extremism. The SCO offers a forum for engagement in facing regional security threats like terrorism, separatism and extremism, especially in South and Central Asia. For India, it's the most relevant platform to present its stance on terrorism compared to G7 or BRICS, as Pakistan also is member of the SCO bloc. SCO, with its focus on the East, also presents an alternative to the dominance of Western point of view. While India, China and Russia, the three leading members of the organization, are also part of the BRICS bloc, the SCO presents a more focused and localized platform for regional security concerns. The SCO also provides a stage for economic and global powers like Russia and India, who are not part of the G7 bloc. However, SCO is not always a grouping of allies. The group has many regional rivalries like India versus Pakistan, India versus China, Iran versus Pakistan. The disparities in national interests among members can hinder cohesive decision-making. Also, unlike the BRICS bloc or G7, the SCO lacks a comprehensive integrated economic agenda and significant economic clout on a global scale. But the opportunity to promote a regional economic integration and cooperation is there. On the strategic front, a key opportunity is to spearhead efforts to stabilize Afghanistan and foster development. Russia and India are already engaging with the Taliban. It also becomes a force to combat the threats of terrorism and extremism, as well as pandemics and environmental degradation. For SCO to grab these opportunities, it needs to stay away from both internal and external threats. This includes the competing national agendas of member nations, the disproportionate influence of China and Russia, and geopolitical influence of the West. BRICS members are also already being targeted by the US for aligning with Russia, and SCO members may also feel the same pressure. Now, earlier we spoke to Asian affairs expert Professor Jeff Kensington, who highlighted the importance of the SCO summit for India and Japan amid the ongoing geopolitical situation over Trump's latest tariffs. Listen to this.
Well, clearly, Modi is in a dynamic diplomatic mode, and I think that Shiba and his advisors will be curious about what went on in Beijing during their meeting, and is very interested in developments at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization that you mentioned earlier on. And so this will be a chance for Modi to engage with Xi and Putin, and I think Japan perhaps wants to use this as a back channel to develop communication with countries at which it has been at odds, particularly China. China has been bothering Japan about territorial disputes in the East China Sea, Senkaku or islands. And so I think that the Japan is that there is a hegemonic aspiration for China in Asia. And this is seen to be a great threat.
Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the India-Japan Economic Forum in Tokyo, where he pitched India as the world's next big investment hub. He underlined that the world is not only watching but also counting on India, pointing to its political stability, economic resilience and transparent policies. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba echoed the sentiment, calling the India-Japan partnership complementary, where Japan's advanced tech meets India's talent. Both leaders emphasized that cooperation is now central to building resilient supply chains and expanding mutual prosperity. Japan is already India's fifth largest investor with $43.2 billion in cumulative FDI and $3.1 billion in inflows last fiscal year. Around 1,400 Japanese companies operate across 5,000 establishments in India, with most reporting profits and expansion plans. Prime Minister Ishiba cited Maruti Suzuki, which entered India 4 decades ago and now dominates the auto market, as a model of success. He also stressed the importance of supply chain resilience backed by new company-level cooperation agreements. Looking ahead, both leaders outlined ambitious plans. Prime Minister Modi announced India's move to open the nuclear energy sector to private players and emphasized cooperation in AI, semiconductors, biotech, quantum computing and space. Ishiba laid out 3 initiatives boosting people-to-people exchanges, fusing technology with markets, and accelerating joint projects such as the Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed rail. Both sides agreed that the partnership is not only shaping the Asian century, but also building a stable supply chain for the global economy. For India, the stakes are even higher as the country looks to soften its blow from the Trump tariffs. And the United States has announced that it will not allow Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas to travel to New York next month for a United Nations gathering of world leaders. This crucial move by US comes at a time when many of its allies are set to recognize Palestine as a state at the United Nations gathering. According to a State Department official, Abbas and about 80 other Palestinians would be affected by the decision to deny and revoke visas from members of the umbrella Palestine Liberation Organization and the West Bank-based Palestinian Authority. Mahmoud Abbas reacted to it strongly and argued that it violated the UN headquarters agreement. Meanwhile, Palestinian envoy has said that they will see exactly what it means and how it applies to any of their delegation.
This statement attributed to the State Department was just released. It was brought to my attention just about half an hour ago. We will see exactly what it means and how it applies to any of our delegation, and we will respond accordingly.
In a social media post, Israel's Foreign Minister Gideon Saar hailed Trump administration and called it a bold decision. Meanwhile, Netanyahu released previously unseen footage from Hamas's October 7th attack. The video showed the attack on a family in Netiv Asara, a community just north of Gaza. Furthermore, as Israel is in its initial phase of planned offensive in Gaza, Hamas has warned that hostages face same risks from the Israeli offensive as its fighters. They added that hostages will be their fighters in the combat and confrontation zones. In addition to that, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres expressed alarm over the humanitarian situation due to Israeli offensive in Gaza City. In a separate development, Turkey has barred Israeli ships from its ports, prohibited Turkish ships from docking at Israeli ports, and restricted planes from entering its airspace. This decision comes amid Turkey's strong criticism of Israel's actions in Gaza, which Turkey accuses of committing genocide. Following this move, Hamas has called on governments worldwide to take similar punitive measures against Israel. For more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report. Listen to this.
The United States has begun revoking or denying visas for members of the Palestinian Authority or the Palestinian Liberation Organization ahead of next month's United Nations General Assembly. The State Department says the move is meant to hold the PLO and PA accountable for undermining peace and pursuing lawfare at the International Criminal Court. Israel's foreign minister thanked Washington and said that it was indeed another step in favor of Israel's position. The State Department did say that they're going to issue some forms of waiver. The UN says that Palestinian representation at the UN is important, notably at the GA, and hopes that the issue will be resolved. The measure comes as several Western countries are considering recognizing a Palestinian state at the General Assembly, a move that Israel, of course, strongly denies. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Now, Ukraine has slammed Russia for continuing to choose war over peace, calling Russian strikes on Ukraine a clear indication of Vladimir Putin's true intentions, one that does not desire peace. Addressing calls for a so-called buffer zone to separate Ukrainian and Russian forces, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky said the buffer zone already exists, while urging for faster shipments of US weapons purchased by Kyiv by other NATO countries. At a UN Security Council meeting in New York, Ukrainian Prime Minister condemned Russia for starting a war not of defense, but an invasion built on imperial ambition.
These killings are deliberate acts of terror. It's an informed decision taken by Moscow to continue its systematic campaign to terrorize civilians and extinguish any semblance of normal life. Yesterday, Russia again responded brutally to our attempts to engage them in a civilized dialogue, in the language of international law, peace, and respect for human life. Russia continues to choose killing over ending the war.
European leaders are vying to step up pressure on Moscow, with French President Emmanuel Macron saying that if Putin does not agree to a summit with Zelensky by Monday, it would mean he has played US President Donald Trump.
At the end of the long meeting we had together a few weeks ago in Washington, the call led to this proposal from President Putin to President Trump: I will see President Zelensky. If this is not fulfilled on Monday, the deadline set by President Trump, I believe that once again it will mean that President Putin has played President Trump.
France and Germany will provide more air defense hardware for Kyiv after Moscow's recent airstrikes with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, warning that the war could go on for many more months. Additionally, EU's proposed plan to conduct military training if the truce is agreed upon. The White House has defended Trump's push for a peace summit between the two warring sides, saying that no president in history has done more to advance the cause for peace.
Such an absurd question. President Trump has achieved 7 peace deals in 7 months. No president in history has done more to advance the cause of peace. He's been nominated by multiple world leaders for the Nobel Peace Prize.
On Monday, Putin will meet with both Iranian and Turkish presidents on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit in Tianjin to discuss the ongoing war in Ukraine. Now, tensions are flaring in Indonesia's capital, Jakarta. The situation has intensified following the death of a 21-year-old food delivery driver who was struck by a police vehicle during mass protests against the extravagant allowances granted to Indonesian parliamentarians. Soon after the incident, a violent mob marched to the headquarters of the police mobile brigade in central Jakarta, with some even attempting to storm the compound. In a show of protest, enraged agitators set fire to a police post in Jakarta while pelting stones on police. The cops used tear gas to contain the situation.
We demand justice for Afan. Those responsible for running him over must be tried fairly and dismissed from their institution.
The victim, 21-year-old Afan Kurniawan, was reportedly completing a food delivery when he was struck by a police vehicle during the Thursday night clashes that escalated into violent protests. According to the Motorcycle Drivers Association, Kurniawan was not involved in the demonstrations. While the 7 crew of the armed vehicle have been arrested, an investigation is underway. His family and the association are now mourning his death. Reacting to the incident, Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto addressed the mounting dissent against his regime and visited the family of the gig motorcycle driver to pay his condolences. He had earlier urged public to remain calm, adding that his government would hold a thorough inquiry into the incident.
I am shocked and disappointed by the officers' excessive actions. I have ordered that last night's incident be thoroughly and transparently investigated. In this kind of situation, I urge the public to remain calm and to have trust in the government I lead. The government I lead will do its best for the people.
Now, what began as sporadic protests limited to Jakarta have now spread to cities across Indonesia. As public anger grows over housing allowances for Trump's reportedly 10 times higher than the capital's minimum wage. At a time when the average Indonesian earns just 3.1 million rupiah, or around $188 a month, several parliamentarians are receiving housing allowances exceeding 100 million rupiah. That's about $6,150. So this stark disparity, with lawmakers earning nearly 30 times the median income, continues to fuel public outrage across the country. Now, a U.S. appeals court ruled that most of President Trump's global tariffs were illegal. In a startling verdict on Friday before the Labor Day weekend, a panel of judges said Trump had exceeded his authority. The appeals court upheld an earlier ruling by the Court of International Trade that Trump wrongfully invoked an emergency law to impose tariffs. But the appeals court judges sent the case back to the lower court to determine if it applied to everyone affected by tariffs or just the parties involved in this case. In the meantime, the tariffs imposed were allowed to remain in place as the litigation proceeds. With the latest ruling, analysts say the case will almost certainly end up before the US Supreme Court. The court said the statute bestows significant authority on the president to undertake a number of actions in response to a declared national emergency. But none of these actions explicitly include the power to impose tariffs, duties, or the like, or the power to tax. In response, Trump on social media said, I'm quoting here, all tariffs are still in effect. A highly partisan appeals court incorrectly said that our tariffs should be removed. But they know that the United States of America will win in the end. If these tariffs ever went away, it would be a total disaster for the country. Ahead of the ruling, Trump's cabinet officials had warned the court that declaring tariffs unlawful would have a devastating impact on American foreign policy. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent warned of dangerous diplomatic embarrassment. The administration filed statements by Bessent, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio in the U.S. Court of Appeals before the verdict. They were filed in support of a request that any ruling against the administration be immediately put on hold until the U.S. Supreme Court issues the final decision. Lutnick had said failing to do so would have devastating and dire consequences. But the appeals court ruled against the administration. Still, the court guided the lower court to follow its recent Supreme Court ruling on Trump's executive order on automatic birthright citizenship. The Supreme Court had ordered that judges should limit their rulings to the parties involved in the case rather than applying across the country, known as universal injunctions. The scope of that verdict leaves many questions unanswered. Now, Jose Mourinho has been sacked as head coach. This after the Turkish club failed to qualify for the main league stage of the Champions League following defeat to Benfica. Now, the Turkish club announced that his contract has been terminated 1 year prior to the date of expiry. A statement from the club said Jose Mourinho has been carrying out his duties starting from the 2024 to 2025 season, has parted ways with us. We thank him for his efforts for our team until today and wish him success in his future career. The dismissal comes immediately after the team were beaten by Benfica in the Champions League playoffs, losing 1-0 on aggregate and dropping into the Europa League. Mourinho joined the club in June 2024 and finished second in Galatasaray in the Super League last season. The Istanbul-based club is chasing its first league title since 2014. The former Real Madrid, Chelsea, Manchester United and Tottenham boss has now been linked with a return to the Premier League, with the likes of West Ham and Nottingham reportedly looking for new managers. Mourinho wasn't the only former Man United manager to be shown the door. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was fired by Besiktas on Thursday. The Norwegian failed to guide Besiktas to the UEFA Conference League, which is the third tier of the European competition, and suffered a play-off loss to Swiss outfit Lausanne, drawing the first leg away 1-1 last week before a shock 1-0 home defeat. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of World DNA. News and updates will continue on the other side. But coming up next, Russian President Vladimir Putin is set to visit India in December after Washington slapped tariffs on New Delhi over its Russian oil purchase. We'll get you all the details on the other side.
India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Asia this week, all eyes on the Modi-Xi meeting on the sidelines of the SCO summit in Tianjin, China. Can the Asian giants tango ahead? Donald Trump's whopping 50% export tariff for select Indian industries kicks in. And it's 8 years since the Rohingya exodus from Myanmar into the squalid refugee camps in Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh. No hope in sight of an end to their nightmare. This and more on Inside South Asia.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
welcome. You're watching WION World as One. My name is Hemkaur Saroya, and here's a look at all the top stories that we're tracking for you right now. White House says US President Donald Trump is still working on a Russia-Ukraine peace summit after French President Emmanuel Macron warns Trump risks